Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and in this video, I'm going to give you guys some tips to hopefully smooth out your journey, and hopefully make Avowed an enjoyable game for you. I had a great time. There are just some things when it comes to Avowed that if I knew them a little earlier, like, you know, level 1 for example, I probably would have had a few less bumps in the road. Now, the first thing I actually want to go to is the settings section. When you go to the settings and you go to UI, there's one thing at the very bottom that you might want to turn on. So your compass can show a lot of things. Pickables, which are going to be plants, throwables, food plants, materials, things like that that you can pick up. You can see corpses, so if it's got an X, you can see if it's like a body that you need to loot. Red will be like a hostile. You can see the direction they're facing if you want to try and sneak up behind them. And by default, the gold shrine totem pieces, which is a thing that you'll want to collect, is off. Now, if you're running around the world, you may miss them, but honestly, if they show up on your minimap, even if they're above or below you, in elevation, it's kind of nice to know that they're around. So my advice is you're probably going to be doing enough exploring and searching as it is. If you happen to be near one of these, you may as well not miss it. So my advice is to turn this on if you want to. But if you want to just explore, you can probably turn everything off. Damage numbers you can turn off and turn on. It's up to you. HUD, you can have it as, minimal. Quest tracker, you can have it dynamically update. All that stuff's kind of up to you. But as for the tokens, for the totems, for the gold shrines, those are something I highly suggest putting on, because if you do happen to be near one, especially on accident, you probably do want to make sure you can get to it one way or the other. So the next thing I want to talk about is your proximity to something valuable. And that can be as simple as a chest, a backpack. It could also be like a big chest with something gold level value in it. There is a wide range of what those things can be, and they will not be on your map. So if it's a pickable, if it's a dead body that you can loot, those are going to be like on the minimap, so you can see those. But when you get close to something valuable, you're going to hear this like light chimes, shimmering. It's a sound that you can actually hear. So as you proceed forward, you're not going to hear anything for a little bit. You hear the music. And again, if you want to adjust your settings, make this even more obvious, for example, you could go to audio. You can turn the music down a little bit more. I enjoy the music. Don't get me wrong. It's actually nice to listen to. But if you don't want to miss this, maybe, bring that down a little bit so it's not distracting. You got birds chirping. You got a little bit of, stuff in the world. But as you get closer, you'll start to hear it right about here. So that's actually faintly there. I know what I'm listening for, but now I'm going to get a lot closer. Now you should be able to start hearing it. And as you get closer, it's a little more valuable. But the thing to know about valuables in this game, they're all over the place. They could be above. They could be below. They can be in a lot of different locations. So you may need to do a little bit of searching to find what you're looking for. But somewhere in a sphere of proximity around you, since this game has a ton of exploration, that's kind of a hard sound to miss. Like, you're close enough to something, it's like, yo, we are screaming at you, there's something around here. Now, previously, there was one that I had opened up that was right down here. It's literally this chest, but I already opened that one, so it's not that. The other one is actually above you from where I was sitting, and this is kind of a good way to show you vertical exploration. You might need to go diving in the water for a couple of things. Believe me, I did that at some point. You can do a lot of exploring in this game and have a lot of fun doing it if you enjoy that kind of thing. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get up to this level, because you'll notice if I look all the way over there, there's a chest, there's a little blue glow, so I'm good. And this also is kind of one of those things I want to point out as well. This gap is not that hard to jump, but I will tell you, you can make jumps that are a lot farther than you think. Like, I can do this jump here, and I'll still make the jump. I can probably jump it from here and get to that thing almost. Notice how it's still, like, as long as I'm kind of turning towards it, as long as you're in the real proximity looking like you're trying to barely grab the edge, the game is very forgiving in edge grabbing. If it's something you can grab, you're probably going to be able to if you get pretty close. Even if you hit it like halfway in the middle of your eyes on the screen, you're still going to grab it. And if you're really worried about a jump, like you're really up high on a tower and you don't want to like die by falling, for example, just save right before you go for the big jump. Literally just pop in here, do a little manual save, and then go for the jump. If you make it, great. If you don't, well, you saved, so no big deal. But yeah, we'll walk over here, and now you'll see, one, got a little bit of silver on the floor, and then two, it's just a chest. Now the level of value obviously is going to be all over the place depending on what you're picking up, but as you go through the game, the more of those things that you search for and find is definitely going to end up paying off, because you'll notice I got one more thing. That means I've got one more above me. That means it's actually going to be on the roof somewhere. There's probably something above my head, on the roof, or up in those little rafters up there, and now I gotta figure out how to get up there. So it can kind of lead to a chain of exploration if you're in an area where there's a lot of secrets, but it's that chimes, little like kind of continuous chime sound, light shimmering sound. If you hear that, go for a hunt because there's likely something around you that's worth finding. So the next thing to talk about is going to be healing and essence replenishment. Now you've got your obvious choices of health potions, and you've also got essence potions, which are going to be a thing as well. So depending on what you unlock, you may get some more options in all of these radio menus. And then depending also, like on controller, I've got 4. I've got up, down, left, and right on my radio menu. So maybe I want the fire starter command to be applied. I can't really do that. But the fire and ice, that's one of my actual abilities for my companion. That's something I can lock in. If I want to put maybe my minor missile ability, if I want to put that on down, I could adjust that there. And then maybe if I go into my consumables menu, maybe I want my health potion still to be, maybe I want that to be right, and I want my essence potion to be up. That's just where I want to put them. You can adjust some of those. Now, you also notice when you come into the radio menu, and the same thing applies for mouse and keyboard. If you go to mouse and keyboard, you'll notice that I have the option for 6 hotkeys. So if I go over something that I can, not one of these basic ones, and these 2 down on the bottom are essence food and then healing food. What it's going to do in these 2 blue ones, or in these 2 colored ones, is the purple one is going to use the most powerful essence restoring food that you have, whatever it is. Now, sometimes you only need a little bit, sometimes you may need a lot. So, and I'll cover kind of why you would do that. But if you're just in a pinch, like me, if I'm playing on controller, if I come in here and I'm like, I need health, use this thing, cool, it's just going to give you the biggest boost real quick and knock it out. You also can come in here and see that I've got mead for certain benefits. I've got other benefits in here, but you can make certain ones hotkeys. And again, remember on mouse and keyboard, if you're doing that, it's just going to be, if I want this to be number 1, put that there, put that as number 2. And then if I come back out, I've got my abilities. So maybe I want this one to be 3, this one to be 4. And then whatever else you have, you'll get a bunch more as you go. So if you're in mouse and keyboard and you go in your radio menu, see on the right where it says bind ability, just pick a number and you can pick those things there down at the bottom. When it comes to healing, you've got, as I said, a couple of different options. You're going to have health potions. In the middle of battle, these are the things that you'll probably want to use to stay alive, because they're going to give you instant health replenishment in battle, no delays or slowdowns. Pretty quick about it. But when you're not in battle, like I'm sitting here right now, really no threats, nothing really going on, then food is really what you're going to want to turn toward, because you want to save those health potions for later on when you might need them. So at this point, you're going to want to come in and check out some of the food. Now, you can overheal yourself, actually, which is not a bad thing, and I'll kind of show you how that works here in a second. But the thing about that is, when you do that, you're only going to be able to get about 1/3 of that. Now, as I'm already at 110 right now, if I had the whole roast chicken for 150, a decent amount of that would get wasted, because you can only store up so much extra health and extra essence. So if I take the stew, for example, at 70, when I go ahead and consume even like these spring berries, I'll do this one, and you'll notice next to like my health right now, so if I come back out, you'll see my health will actually go up. And then that actually, and you saw the little health apple next to the health bar kind of use up what it had and then send it to my health bar. Same thing again, if I use the spring berries here, if I consume this, it's going to give me a little bit more. And you'll also notice it was giving me a little bit of essence. And the essence is actually stocking up, and it's got 42 left over. So if I use anything that's got essence, now you see I've actually got a little bit of health left over. I've got 1 rotation of essence left over. But I don't think you can store yourself like 300 or 400 health just by eating everything. You can store yourself what looks to be about 1/3 more of what you typically have. 1/3, 1/4, somewhere in that realm. I haven't done the math yet. Somewhere in that realm of what you can actually acquire. So I do recommend eating when you're not in combat, and then potions, use them as little as possible. Like once you get used to dodging and stuff like that, you won't need them as often. But those are more meant for combat purposes. Save those only when you're in the combat action, because if you use them out of combat, you're kind of wasting. And the food is the one that's going to actually be able to overfill you, which is even better. Next thing I want to talk about is just the map. Once you've got actual quests going on, you're going to see that you've got quests of different difficulty. You've got the indications of what's going on there. And this is actually a good thing to mention first. Quests with no skulls next to them, pretty much even to your level. One skull, as you can kind of see here, that's a little harder, but you should be able to manage. 2 skulls and then 3 skulls. Definitely more of a trouble when you get to it. You might be well out of your league if you go fight this right now. Probably need to level up your gear. We'll talk about crafting a bit later, but kind of pay attention to what you're getting into. And if you see, like, currently my gear is, when I go over to my gear, common quality. And that's like of 1, 2, and 3, you'll level it up. When you upgrade, then it would go to fine quality, which would be blue. If you're running around in like common quality and you see an enemy that's got like a blue number 2 next to it, and that means their gear is, you know, the equivalent of fine, or it's like a whole tier above yours, they might show 3 skulls, and that is for real. They are going to be a challenge. I think I know where this one actually is, and it's definitely going to be a challenge. So when it comes to what quests you're going to go to, you might kind of prioritize them in order, and you might be like, all right, this one might be a little high, let me go do this one. And you can change whichever one you're tracking. Well, when you go to your map, it's actually going to change the icon. So this is a quest. This is a quest. And this is actually a major quest, you can see. So the journal is going to have your main quest, a message from afar. That's going to have that like 4-sided icon. The tracked quest that you currently have, that as you can see, it's the track quest that has that little arrow shape to it, kind of the down arrow here. And then just the normal quest has this little 2-sided icon. This is a side quest. It's an optional one. Those are going to be available to do as well. Treasure maps, they're not going to tell you anything. They're not going to be trackable. They're not going to tell you where. You got to figure them out. So those are the different type of quests. Also, you're going to have fast travel options. You're going to have camps that eventually, if you run by one of the big Adra crystals, you'll be able to set up camp. You'll kind of go through a nighttime setting. You'll be able to talk to your companions. I do recommend talking to your companions a lot. Even if you don't listen to it all, I would exhaust most of the talking to them, so you can usually, at some point in your discussion with them and their kind of quest chains that they go through, I've got some benefits from them, but I don't think I exhausted some of my other companions on my other playthrough. But I did get a benefit from Kai eventually that I could just choose. So it is worth kind of talking your way through all of your companions to get the benefits from them. But you'll be able to fast travel to your actual camps that are going to be kind of set up in a couple locations once you discover them. And you also have fast travel beacons. One's going to be like in a main city. One might be over here somewhere. You can just straight up fast travel here if you want to fast travel. Like, I can go right there. But there are times you won't be able to fast travel. And you'll know that if you look in the upper left-hand corner, the map, I would basically see one of these. See that purple icon? I would see that, but it basically would have an X over it, and it would be just outside of the minimap. And that basically implies you can't fast travel. It could be a couple of reasons. One, you might be down buried in a cave, and you need to work your way back out of a cave or dungeon or whatever you want to call it to get back into the open world. Then you can fast travel. Sometimes there are story beat moments that, like, hey, I went to go do a thing, a big story thing happened. Well, they want you to walk back to wherever you're going because you need to see what's on the way. They need time to deliver dialogue. All of those things can be a reason. If you can't fast travel, check the minimap, and if it tells you can't fast travel, get to walking. But honestly, nothing in the game in these zones is that far away once you start walking, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, you can fast travel a lot of the time. There are just a few times you can't. So the next thing I want to mention are pickups. Now, you might see on the minimap an X. That's basically going to be a body or a corpse that you can loot. So there's something there. As soon as you've looted it all, it will go away. You're also going to have red icons for enemies. You can see which direction they're facing if you want to try and sneak up behind them if you're quiet. Then you're also going to have these pickupables, or kind of, you're going to have throwables, which look like green icons that are kind of basically completely circular. They look like they're made of leaves, but they still look like a circle. Those are going to be throwable grenades, or throwable little fire bombs, or electric bombs, or frost bombs. Those are things you can throw to either activate doors or traps or whatever it may be. Those are going to be the circles. Then you've got the ones that look like what I've got right here in front of me. That is going to be the little 2 stem, or 2 leaves on a stem. Those are going to be consumable food items. So like this one here, I can pick up the spring berries. That's going to be a food item. The third type is going to be probably the most important, because that's going to be your crafting materials. So now when I walk into this town, you'll notice that I've got a little icon on the map that looks like kind of a slanted leaf with 1 small leaf on the left and like 2.5 on the right kind of thing. And one thing to know, sometimes you're going to have to break boards or break barriers. Sometimes you might need an obstacle broken with fire, whatever it may be. But these are going to be your pickups for material upgrades, these are always worth going after. So if you see them out there, definitely worth picking up. And again, there's that little chime symbol for the lockbox. Picked up that as well. So you've got the circles, which are going to be your consumable, like throwables. Sorry, not consumables, but throwables, like grenades. You're going to have your upgrade materials. Then you've got your like food type consumables, which are those little 2-stem things, which you can see like far out on the map right now. So those are the pickups that you're probably going to see, and most of what your mini map is going to show. This is kind of a 2-for-1. If you're walking around the world and you see a vendor that has fish out, or a bar with like, I don't know, gold sitting on a table, pick it up. No one in the world is going to get mad at you. There's no recourse or karma or anything like that. If you just see something and you can pick it up, pick it up. There's nobody who's going to get mad about it. I think one person might have actually said something, but more often than not, they just don't care. It's not really a thing in the game. The other thing is with regards to your merchants.
Welcome.
Now, when you come to merchants, one of the things I want to make sure you buy as many of as possible is lockpicks. You're going to use them all throughout the game. Sometimes there are doors where it says you can either use a certain number of lockpicks, maybe 3, maybe 5 later in the game, or if you find a certain key, you might be able to open the door. Well, if you explore around, you might find the key. You might not, though. And if you have enough lockpicks, you can just go straight forward, open the door, and move on with your gameplay without having to search for whatever key it is. Also, later on in the game, there may be just a random little chest, like at a enemy hideout, and the only way to open that is going to be 3, or saw some that were even up to 5 lockpicks, and there's no other option. So you're going to need as many as you can. They're cheap to purchase. So my advice is truly pick up every single lockpick that you ever see at a vendor because they're cheap, and there's really no reason not to. Now, another thing is when you come over to a vendor, you are going to want to check because you're going to pick these up occasionally. Gems, so you can have like all of these, which are going to be monster parts. These are going to be for unique items that you'll be able to adjust later. You'll have your food consumables, you'll have your gloves and boots, your chest armor, your weapons, and kind of your mix of everything. If you have anything that is a gem, you should probably just sell it because that is all they're for. They do nothing but make you money. So if you get any gems in this category over here, sell them all. Also, when you're in this screen, you can swap back and forth between your inventory and then your stash. Now, in my stash, got a couple of things here that I've already picked up. And then if I go back to my inventory, then I can see what's going on up here. So in my inventory, I've got this stuff. In my stash, I put 1 weapon over there, so I'm good to go. I think some of that stuff must have been pre-order stuff, which it's fine. It's no big deal. But yeah, when you're at a vendor, or if you're just out in the world and you see money sitting somewhere, just pick it up. It's just literally fair game for everybody. Buy as many lockpicks as you ever can at vendors, and if you have any gems on you, sell them. So when you're getting ready to engage in an encounter, there's a few things you need to make note of. 1, what level are the enemies? So here you can see this guy is tier 1, common enemy, and he's also 0 of 3, because he doesn't have any little pips next to his number 1. And you can even see the pips I'm talking about here. The common quality for the wind and wave, it's 1 of 3, so it's +1 of 3, and it's got one of those little, it's almost like a ranking mark, basically. I just forget what those are called off the top of my head, but that's 1 of 3. But what you'll notice it bases things off of is going to be the enemy's damage that they're probably going to be doing to you, which is partially based on armor, and then it's also going to be based on your weapon. So if your weapon is weak, you're also not going to be doing much damage to them. If your weapon is truly like a tier below, like if I'm 0 of 3 and he was a 0 of 3, but it's had a Roman numeral 2 and it was in like dark blue, that would actually just be a really long, tedious fight. You could probably do it if you got the skills, the dodges, and you could manage it. It's just going to kind of suck to work your way through. Honestly, go upgrade at the camp, come back a little bit later, it's going to be a much more favorable situation. But you'll notice, even if I equip, say, my shield and a sword, even if the shield is upgraded, he's still got the same rank to me. Main thing is because my armor is all common, basic 0 of 3 stuff. So it's both your weapon and your armor that they're kind of showing that based on. But you can manage some of these things. But I would honestly tell you, like, if you're looking at something that's a bit too high, now, if you see something that's tier 2 and maybe it's 0 of 3, you just see a number 2 and no little pips for his ranking, and you're 3 of 3, on, say, common quality, you're going to be able to manage that fight if you're reasonable about it. It's still going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it's kind of like me going against him right now with 1 skull. It's not going to be like a 3 skull, this is going to be a pain in the butt kind of fight. So that's a thing to note. The other thing I kind of want to mention, and this is kind of hard to define, whatever you see enemy-wise, so I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I feel like there's a 5th one roaming around somewhere. For whatever reason, And it happens in either dungeons or bosses or whatever it may be. Whatever enemies you see in an area, there's likely going to be more that either spawn partway through that fight, and maybe not in the first zone, but I will promise you, you'll go into a cave of spiders, you'll be like, cool, I'm killing the last spider, and all of a sudden there's like 4 or 5 more that come in, maybe there's a boss that spawns after wave 3. Any group of encounter, any encounter that you're basically going to walk into, be ready for it to be 2 or 3 times more than you see. And if you're comfortable with combat, it doesn't end up being that big of a deal, but just knowing, like, I have X number of heals, I have X number of, like, you know, stuff stored up. Maybe I do want to eat one of these Marie Cruda, so I've got some backup stuff. Maybe I do want to make sure I top off my essence to make sure I'm ready to go for the full fight. Whatever it is, just know you're probably going to get a little bit more of a fight than you see, because it tends to spawn another wave, have a few more enemies than you expect. So just keep that in mind, but pay attention to difficulty, and if something's out of hand, come back later, level up, and, you know, just put a pin on the map to yourself and be like, I need to come back here. I was a little bit weak. I wish you could actually pin the map. That's not something I know that you can specifically do. I kind of wish you could, but not anything that I've been able to do yet. So when it comes to combat, you've got a couple different playstyles, depending on what weapons you want to use. You can go ranged, which is going to be your pistols, your bows, and your arquebus, which is going to be your, basically, kind of call it a blunderbuss is what I would call it. You've got your grimoire and wand, and then you've got your two-handed combat, like a great axe, or you can go one-handed combat with a shield. You can even do crazy combinations like a wand and a pistol, if you're interesting. You just want to fire shots with the wand, but maybe shoot a pistol. You could do a dagger and a sword if they're both one-handed, because I can literally go here, and then I can go left-hand. And I can literally have both. It's weird, and you can even... I'm going to try and back out of this real quick so I don't annoy them. Just so I don't get anything too crazy, I'll back over here. You can even do your charge attacks with both hands. So like, here's a charged spear attack. Here's a charged sword attack. You can do them both. Now, you'll use stamina, of course. But also, if you want to swap it out to be like, I just want one big axe, that is a two-hander. And that's definitely something you can do. Now, if you're using a weapon like this, you can block. If you're using a shield, you can block. If you're using a dual-wield situation, whether it is wand and grimoire, I have no way to block. Now, I'm going to have my spells that I can pull up with left trigger, but I have no way to block. Now, you could technically do a shield. I don't think you can actually primary a shield. You could primary a wand and a shield if you want to block and then fire, but then you're not going to have access to your spells. So you can mix and match truly however you want. If you want to do a wand and a pistol, you can do that. You can fire. And you can also, you know, but for you to actually go for firing, it's going to be a little hard for you to aim. You're going to be able to aim, but again, you're not quite as specialized. But you can have some fun combos and put out a lot of damage. That's one of those times where you probably want to be stamina heavy as well. But I'm just going to go with the wand and the grimoire. Pretty standard stuff. And when it comes into... Did I unequip my wand? I did. When it comes to combat, you've got the option to do a stealth attack if you can get next to an enemy. Depends on if they see you, if they don't. If you can get behind an enemy and come from a different angle, maybe that's an option. All depends on how you approach. I will tell you, the game doesn't really allow you to do a ton of stealth. You might get one stealth attack off, you might get two if you're lucky, but I don't think I've ever been able to do like a full enemy camp in stealth mode. It just doesn't seem to work. So if you want to wait for one bigger guy to patrol and get the jump on him, you totally can. If you're willing to risk like running out and catching one guy off guard, and then probably knowing the rest of them are going to wake up, you can do that too. So sometimes it's worth just going after the biggest enemy, getting a jump on them with your godlike attack, and then just knowing you can go in and probably go for the rest. But the other thing about combat to know, anybody who looks like they have some type of healing potential, that one kind of looks like a shaman, but I don't know if he specifically is. But if it's a shaman, if it's a priest, if it's a healer, the healer's got to die first, or your encounter's like never going to end. So if you see any health bars going back up after you've done damage, go find that healer. There's typically only one per big group, but they really do make things take a while. So at this point, this guy's still got his eyes on me. I'm kind of hiding in the grass over here. I don't know if I can get by. I might be able to. And then your godlike attack will usually do a good amount of damage, but you're only going to get the one. So just know that. And then you got to be ready to go for it. So from here, this is where you're going to learn to either dodge, kind of manage your abilities that way. So I can get a little freezing going. So again, there's the Elder. Anytime you see that green burst, that's your focus to kill. And then I can shatter this guy. But again, every style is going to be different. I don't have a block or a parry. I can get some essence back. So I can freeze him up, and then he will shatter. That's a really light combat encounter, but that's kind of the main points is you're likely not going to be able to stealth the whole thing. It's just not going to happen. I can tell you from experience that I have tried, and if you manage it, good for you, but it just doesn't really seem likely. But the other thing to know is you might be able to get a jump on one, so if you do, make it the most important one. And then anything else you do from there, you've either got to manage your blocks, your parries, or your dodges. And again, you can, look, like if you do a full charge, that's going to take some stamina. These little shots take stamina. Dodges take stamina. Stamina is not a bad thing to invest your stats in, unless you're going like full tank and you're blocking all the time, then more power to you. But when it comes to combat just in general, take a second, look around the encounter. You can be creative how you start them, but you're eventually just going to have to dive into combat, deal with all the enemies that spawn, and probably fight your way out of most situations. There's not a lot of your, like, Assassin's Creed, take out an enemy camp with stealthing through the entire thing. I have not seen that as possible for basically any encounter. Hopefully this helps, though, gives you an idea when it comes to combat. Like this guy over here, I know he's not alone because I've done this one before. So again, you got a couple guys that you might not have seen. One over there. Light a guy on fire. Can actually zap him a little bit. He's going to be shocked. And again, don't forget about your companions' abilities. They're a nice way to come in. Kai is going to be a good tank. Marius is going to be basically a good ranger, and he's able to like crowd control enemies. Then you're going to have a healer as the third one, and then a mage as your fourth companion. They all have different cool stuff they can do, but I can sit here and dodge this guy all day long. He's actually going to take him out, though. So they're not useless, but they're not the strongest. And your companions level up with you. You will have skill points that you can put in to them. Basically, what you'll do is first you'll unlock abilities. And my advice is, yeah, you could specialize all into this one ability. It's still going to have a cooldown. The more abilities they have, the more things that they can do, and the more things that you can tell them to do. So early on, I would try and unlock the abilities, and then later in the game, then you can pick your specialties. But if he has 2 different attacks, then that's 2 different things that I can tell him to do in combat that are going to help take the distraction off of me. And Kai is a really good one. Unless you're going full plate mail tank, and you're going sword and shield or big heavy weapon, and you just know you're going to be taking the brunt of taunting and everything else, Kai is a really good companion. 1, because he has the fire ability for burning brambles and traps, so you don't have to worry about those. But 2, he's got the tank and the armor, and he's going to be pulling aggro. So if you're ranged or if you're a mage, he's a good companion for most of the way through. So I've been running around a little bit, picking up some things, fighting a few enemies, and haven't done too much on this playthrough, but I did a little bit over here, fought some Zarups. There's a camp over here. Probably could take it out, but didn't want to do the whole thing. You can't go into Paradise, though, and I'll talk about the bounty wall here in a minute, until you actually do the first quest. So without having to go do that, I do want to recommend one thing. Over here in Shantytown, a couple of quick vendors you can visit. And the other thing is there is a guy there who has a small quest. You basically jump up on the upper level, kind of jump around on some of the rooftops and rafters in a little bit, and you'll get your first amulet. Plus 20% currency when you're looting coins. It's not a bad way to get a little bit more money from the start. You'll eventually replace it with something that actually has tangible benefit, probably in combat, but early on it's not a bad thing to have. But as I've been running around, I've been getting quite a few upgrade materials. Now, I already covered the enchanting station in a separate recording. I might even put it right after this. I can't upgrade the one that I do have, but just know that I cover that here in a second. But the big thing is, when you get to upgrades, you want to make your combat a little bit easier. So, stuff that I'm using right now, if I go to weapons, is I've got my wand, I've got my grimoire. Do I even have that equipped? Nope, I sure don't. There's my wand. So, stuff that I've got equipped is going to be at the top. Alternate hand is going to be the bow. And you'll notice I have enough softwood branches and Paradise and ladder. Again, the branches come from like combat and chests and everything else. The Paradise and ladder, that's the like vegetation resource that you pick up for crafting. And if I want to preview the upgrades, I can see I can take it all the way up to common 3 of 3. So I'm going to do a lot more damage. Stun won't change because I don't have the big jump. When you get up to these levels, there's another material involved, which that I think mostly comes into the uniques. But either way, I don't have enough to make the big jump up to fine level 0. But for now, this is still going to be a pretty substantial boost. And it's going to use a lot of my resources, but you'll notice the softwood branches are going to be for the wooden items. The wand, the bow, arquebus, for example, but if I have an axe, I'm going to need iron chunks. If I'm going to use a shield, that's going to be a branch, because that is a wooden shield for the time being. Sword's going to be iron, and armor is going to be pelts. So you've kind of got a bit of a choice here, and then we come up to Grimoire, we're going to have more branches. So if I take this all the way up, I'm going to use almost everything. But if I kind of want to split some of the benefits here, still probably do a decent amount of damage with the wand, but maybe give myself at least a little bit of an ability cooldown, I'll do one benefit here. So I'll upgrade this level one time. Then I'll take my wand up one level as well. It's my main attacking stuff. And then I kind of want to see here that if I can upgrade my armor once, at least this way, I'm going to get a little bit more damage reduction. And now I'm basically 1 of 3 across the board. Most things that I'm going to fight now, if I go check my journal and I check my quests, nothing is 3 anymore. Max is 2 skulls. This is 1. Some of the stuff is now 0. So I've helped myself quite a bit just getting up 1 even spread across the board. Both armor and weapons for that damage reduction. But if I come back here and I'll see what else do I have. How high can I take my wand to be able to do a bit more damage? 2 away from softwood, almost there. But again, that jump is 8, and then it's going to require like 14 more. Could I do 8 and 8 to give both of these a boost? Probably could. Or could I upgrade my armor as well and get both? Probably can actually do that one. So I'm going to upgrade my armor to give a little more damage reduction. I'm going to do the wand up here because I've got 8. And then it looks like I do have enough. I'm not going to mess with the bow because that's kind of my backup ranged weapon that I'm not really using. But I can go for my Grimoire here. That's going to get me to 2 of 3 for common quality. And if I go and check my journal now, most things are manageable at my level. Some stuff might be a little harder, but nothing is going to be crazy. And you'll notice how little I've done. I literally have not even started the main quest yet. I've just run around. I searched the lighthouse up here. I did a little bit of searching back here. I cleared out the fractured shore. I fought some Zarups, and that's mostly it. There's so much that I haven't done. Trust me, this first zone, there's a lot you can get lost in. There's some secret caves. There's some bosses. There's plenty of stuff I haven't done. And I'm already 2 out of 3. So the common stuff is not that hard to upgrade. And in the first zone, I would do something like this. Upgrade your stuff to level 2 or level 3. You're going to find plenty of common resources, I promise you. And then when you find some unique stuff as you're wandering around the zone, like a sword or a wand or a gun or a whatever, and then you're like, all right, this unique thing seems cool. I can lean a little more into this playstyle for a while. Then you'll play with that for a good amount of time, and you'll be able to actually get by for quite a while. If you don't love the playstyle, you can't really get your resources back. I will tell you, like, I'm only going to get 6 back, even though to get it to this level, I spent much more than that. So just know when you do upgrade, kind of commit to that playstyle, even for the first zone. But now that I'm going to go through with like level 2 upgrades, most of the quests are going to be pretty manageable. There might be some stuff that's higher, because I know there's some stuff that's like over in this region, I think, if I remember correctly, that are going to be a bit tougher for sure. But if I get to 3 of 3 for this first zone, I'm good. It's a little harder to upgrade some of the unique weapons because they take a specific currency to take to a higher level. If you're going to upgrade something like the sword, you'll notice when I upgrade levels, it takes Adra. And if you go to find, it takes the next tier of Awakened Adra. This is the thing that will slow down your upgrades for unique gear. And this is why I will tell you, if you find a piece of unique gear that you like using, and you're like, hey, movement speed, frost resistance, cool. I wouldn't really, go full send on upgrading a unique too early, because the resource of Adra and Awakened Adra, not that easy to come by. Like, I was able to really upgrade 1 or 2 things as I got to the higher end and kind of carry those with me that I enjoyed using. But to be completely honest, that Adra is so rare, I didn't have a lot of other options, so I was kind of stuck. The common stuff you can do plenty with, it's just you won't have the benefit of whatever your, uniques are going to be able to do. But you can still get plenty done with your common things. You just won't have, my sword won't have a fire ability on it, or my axe is not going to do frost damage. You won't have those fun little tidbits to combat, but I will tell you, if you run around with even common gear that's upgraded, which is much easier to upgrade, you're going to be plenty strong. So if you lean into a playstyle and you do it with common gear, you'll be fine. But hopefully at some point with some exploring, or maybe a Google search, somebody probably has a big list of them out there somewhere, you'll be able to find where exactly the unique gear that goes into your playstyle, maybe the specific gun or pistol or axe or sword, and then you'll be able to go from there. But early on, make these kind of upgrades, make the early zone pretty easy to run around and explore. And then when you're searching for stuff in the first zone or two, you're a lot more powerful and you're having a lot more fun. Now, being as this is a fresh playthrough and I don't want to spoil too much, you will have unique weapons that come up all the time. And honestly, once you start getting unique weapons, you're likely not to use the common weapons. That's something I just previously discussed. Unique weapons have the ability to take whatever their basic ability is, like Rising Chill on this axe, for example. Power attacks deal moderate frost accumulation to enemies. And then also the lesser Freezing Lash hits deal plus 5% bonus frost damage. But you'll notice Rising Chill can be upgraded. You can either take it to Cold Snap, power attacks deal high frost accumulation to nearby enemies, or Vengeance Rhyme, which I can't see, but it would, it would show you the description. And basically it's going to come from all these like monster parts that you have. So when you back out and you look in your inventory, you're going to see these monster parts, and they're going to be things like Zarup Tongues, Bear Claws. You'll find these by beating enemies, by opening chests, by finding secrets. You're going to be collecting them all the way through. And these are going to be just some of the random enchanting parts that you can use to upgrade your materials. These are your basic materials for upgrades. These are your enchanting materials. All of this is going to be usable here. You'll find these all over the place, all through the game, and that's the main reason that you're going to be using them. So when you enchant not an exotic weapon, I should say, but a unique weapon, you're basically just going to take that primary enchantment and you're going to take it to the next level, but it is permanent. That is key. Once you make that choice for that weapon, it's permanent. Now, if you're good with the choice, you could level that thing all the way to endgame. If you enjoy that Frost Axe and that goes into your build, cool. But, if you make the choice and you find a different unique later on, no big deal. Go on to something else. But just know the upgrade is permanent. You're going to use those random things that you find. If you beat spiders, or you beat a bear, and you get a claw, that's what those are for, and that's why you should probably keep them. But again, just remember those are a permanent change, but they're definitely worth the upgrade, so you should pick one when you have the opportunity. Just, stick with your choice and roll with it. Also, small piece of advice. If you ever see a big, giant cave, a bunch of spider webs around, and there's just an unoccupied chest with only a couple baby spiders in front of it, yeah, that's a giant trap, in case that's not clear. So sure, we'll open it, see what's inside, but the number of enemies I'm about to get surrounded by, not even funny. Now I'm going mage, which is going to be nice for the electricity that I can chain to a lot of them. I will say mage is a very fun playstyle. If you're wondering which way to play, mage is pretty legit. You got some pretty cool abilities, you've got shields, you're going to have some awesome wands and fire spells, and quite a few different spells that you can pick from too. But again, you'll notice I've killed all the enemies, and now we're actually getting our second wave of enemies. So when I say, like, even what you think might be there or might not be there, there's the other one. There's typically going to be more, and there's eventually going to be some big guys I know, because I've done this before. Now, if I can line them all up. Like, I've got a chain lightning spell, but the first time I did this, I just had a bow, and I was trying to run away the whole time, so it was not an easy thing to do. But spells and crowd control really make a big difference. And I gotta be honest with how powerful some of these spells are. Now granted, I upgraded the Grimoire, I upgraded, and this is where I will actually use a heal. But again, if you can dodge, if you can manage your heals, and you can manage your resources, you can do a lot of combat that's going to be somewhat above your level. But being as my stuff is already at, +2 out of 3 for common quality when I jumped in here, I'm capable of getting away with quite a bit more. Now the baby chest that you didn't see is right over here in the corner. That's actually got a good amount of stuff in there, but that's just the one you don't expect to see. And don't forget too, there might be some stuff that's not on the map for resources, but it can definitely be worth picking up. And then so is this and this. So yeah, definitely make sure you check a room before you leave it. But also know that whatever you see, and even the group that may have spawned might have not even been as big as I thought. The waves that jumped out, there were 3 more waves that jumped afterwards. And this is another one of those, like, if you need the ability to open something, I can throw a consumable, and right now I've got the Eye of Regmund, that would be the frost one. That would be the one that makes a platform in water. This is the Forgotten Soul Pod. I don't think this clears anything. Grenade will explode. The Magran's Fury is the fire one to burn down stuff like spider webs. But I can have my companion do it, which is so nice. Anyway, on to the next tip. So the Totem Shrine is going to be where you can place totems. There is one totem per zone, and then there are 6 little artifacts or fragments for that totem that can be found throughout the zone. The cool thing about the totems is once you get the totem, you can place it here in the camp, and you'll be able to look for like whichever totem you're looking for. So this one I know is the Wodaka totem base, for example. And if you find the Wodaka totem, first you have to find that one. And those are things not obvious. You're not going to be able to buy those. You're going to have to just search throughout the world to locate it. But then you would place the totem here. Now, what you can do is the other 6 fragments for the totem, there's typically a list of clues or hints to where those are located at one of the vendors. So you're going to want to check most of the vendors to find that list of hints. And then if you can track all of them down, whether it's by description or whatever it may be, and again, turn that thing on in the settings so you can find the totem fragments. And those will be the little gold icons in your minimap if you get near them. Find enough of those will be basically permanent buffs. You could get one that's like +2 to 2 different stats. Another one that allows your second wind to have more of a benefit. And if you find all 6 in one region, you can just roll with that for the rest of the game if you don't want to find them all. So if you do find quite a few in one of the regions, I would try and spend the time to go even farther and find all of them for one of the regions. The benefit about the first region is the one you're probably going to be exploring the most before you're like, all right, I really just want to finish the story. And then if you do find them all for the first region, you're going to be able to have 6 different benefits throughout the rest of the game, and you won't have to worry about as much else. Final thing I want to mention, but it's not a quest I've gone to pick up, are bounties. Now, in each major zone, you're going to have one big name city. Paradise is the first one. I'm not going to show you anything else, but each of the other big zones that you're going to have out here are going to have one big city in them. In that city, there's going to be a bounty vendor and a big bounty board with it, whether it's 5 or 6 or 7 bounties that you can pick up. They're all basically going to be hunts, specific bosses, specific enemies, group of bandits, or whatever it may be. And as you go through and kill all of those, you'll be getting 1, rewards when you come back to the bounty vendor. You're going to get a cash reward for beating it. 2, you're going to get whatever those unique enemies drop. If it's a group of pirates or something, who knows, they might drop a unique amulet or a unique pistol that does something cool. So the bounty hunts alone are worth doing because you can get some unique rewards in the money, but also if you do all of the bounty hunts in an area and then come back to the bounty vendor, what you're going to find is if you do all of them, they're actually going to give you a unique reward on top of all the other stuff you've got already, and that's going to usually be maybe a cool piece of jewelry, an amulet, a ring, something you wouldn't get any other way. And also by doing the bounties, you're going to tend to explore a lot of the map. And while you can get lost pretty easily, there may not be a reason to go way up here in a corner or something, and it's going to give you the reason to kind of finally check the last nooks and crannies. So if you're going for completion, the bounties are a nice thing to do, but they're also pretty legit hunts. And as combat's a fun part of this game, I highly recommend doing those, whether you fight a big giant bear, a giant spider boss with a whole bunch of little spiders. I have fought fire elementals, groups of pirates, and other things. So lots of fun fights in there, and if you want to extend combat, the bounties are a good way to challenge yourself and likely level up as well. Alright, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler warning on this one. I'm going to solve one of your treasure maps for you. And the main reason I'm going to do that is because I want you to kind of have an idea of what you're looking for when you go for a treasure map. If you want to skip this part of the video, feel free to skip to the next timestamp, turn it off, whatever, but that's also why this is going to be at the end of the video. So when you go to your journal, go to your quest log, anytime you see treasure maps, you're going to see a picture like this. It's going to give you maybe a little arrow, maybe a little X on the map of where it is. It might show you kind of, here's your trail, here's what you're looking for. They're actually pretty good when you get used to knowing what to look for. Once you've kind of wandered around and be like, okay, there's a big cliff, there might be, I don't know, something on that side, I'm under a cliff, whatever it may be. It's like, I think I got an idea, and I think I know where this is, having played. This one specifically, you'll notice we've got a weaving river, kind of got some city stuff off to the right, trees off to the left, and we've got an archway that it zooms in on, and then if you follow the little arrow down by the water, right next to the big archway, you're going to notice this little, I don't know, rock pile, sandy spot, whatever it may be. So again, this is spoiler warning for this one. You've had your warning. So that archway, if you want to look on the map, is going to be right here. So you notice where I am. You're going to be coming up here past Ivana's Threshold, east of Old Peregrine Wall, and if you turn to the left, you're going to see what very much looks like this archway. Now, the main reason I'm doing this one is because I think I found this much later in the game. I came back to, like, check off some boxes, and the piece of gear that I found in here was really high level. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm crazy. Who knows? But either way, what you'll notice is, here's the archway, here's kind of the pile of rocks, and I'm basically in the right spot. And you're like, all right, where do I go? It always takes just a little bit more than you think to look around. So we're going to go down in the water, underneath, and then swim up under here. And then we've got chests. No lockpick, just a hidden chest. If you find it, cool. We're going to go ahead and open this thing up. And inside, I'm going to find nothing really crazy valuable. Some gold, some iron chunks, and some upgrade materials. So again, I don't think this is what I was thinking of. It was probably something else. But that's basically the way they work. But all those upgrade materials, you can find unique weapons in those. The treasure maps are worthwhile. And just once you find one, glance occasionally at the picture and be like, all right, do I know where that one is? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. And if it's not done, then guess what? I kind of forgot something. So there's something else down here. So if we swim back down here, I'm not done. I actually missed something in here. So if we come back up, we're going to see that there is a shield right here. So it seems the item is actually going to drop just a hair above your gear level. Because I think I found this shield, but I found it at a much, much higher quality than you would have found it otherwise. Like, I found it in, maybe I was in like zone 3 or zone 4. When I came in here, this thing was superb. So it is based on when you find it, what level this thing is. Now, you may have to travel through zones for it to actually upgrade, but if there is something you look online, maybe it's a cool thing that you can pick up, that can be something maybe you pick up later. This one adds to movement speed, adds resistance to frost accumulation. It's not a bad thing to have, and now that I've got a better shield, I will never use a common shield until I find some other upgrade. So that is one of the treasure maps. If you were wanting to avoid spoilers, main reason I put that at the very end is with the spoiler alert, but now you know that's a place to find a shield if you're looking for it, or if you're looking for unique. Either way, that's the final one I've got for you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, drop a like below. If you share this with anybody and they find it beneficial, you know, subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more stuff coming, going big on Monster Hunter Wilds amongst many other games. So lots of stuff coming for me. Find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Blue Sky, Patreon, all those places. Thank you guys for any support or just watching. Hopefully you learned something in here, and I'll see you in the next video.